Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Welcome to Saving with Silverman, the radio show that you get every week with Mark Silverman, certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson. And Mark Silverman, this is Ron Stutz, and it is always good to be with you.
Ron, always happy to be here. How are things with you?
Doing great. I've had an outstanding week and ready for another great radio show. You have a lot of information to pass along to folks, and I know that our listeners are going to really get a lot out of this. Let me pass along the phone number. You can call this number or you can text this number, and you can get in touch with Mark Silverman's office, and pretty soon you can come in and sit down face-to-face and have a conversation about your situation with no obligation, no cost. 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call or text. One more time, that's 520-333-7601. We'll give that number again in just a few minutes here. Everybody's been thinking about the Olympics lately, the Winter Olympics. And are you a big fan of the Olympic Games on television?
I do. I'll watch them. I mean, I'm not every sport, but I'll watch them. I mean, Certainly it's interesting. Hope the USA does well.
I thought this might be a good opportunity to talk about the Winter Olympics, since everybody's mindset is there right now, and how there are some certain comparisons with financial planning. Explain how we might find some similarities between figure skating, for example, at the Winter Olympics and the world of financial planning. How can those two things be connected?
Well, with figure skating, I know, and I've never done figure skating, as you know, Ron.
That's not a shock.
For those of you that know me. But I would think, figure skating is very technical. You have to know what you're doing. But by the same token, you've got to have, grace and poise, I would think. And so, when it comes to the financial markets, it's you need to know what you're doing. But you also need to work with someone who's not going to make, emotional driven mistakes when it comes to, financial planning, that's going to put a plan together for you and not freak out when, the market's down a bunch of points like we've seen recently, but, helping you stay on track and focused on your goals and making those adjustments as need be.
Yeah. Figure skating is all about, a lot of it has to do with style as well. And it's like, style is not so important in financial planning. We just got to make sure that you cover all the right bases.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, you want to work with someone in our industry that knows what they're doing, but you probably don't want to go the person that has the most expensive office, because of course you're paying for that.
Yeah.
But by the same token, you want to work with someone who's, got a decent office. You don't want to be walking into a shack, but you want to feel comfortable and able to express your goals and dreams and values and those sorts of things. That's going to do a good job for you, that you feel is going to be competent. And so again, you don't want to get caught up with somebody that's, wearing the slick suit and that sort of thing, but you want to go with somebody that knows what they're talking about, that's got the qualifications that are important.
I know that, there's some people who are really hooked on figure skating. My wife, for example, will sit and watch it for hours. I get bored with it after a while, but, that is one thing.
I agree. I'm the same way.
That's one thing that really gets on everybody's minds a lot this time of the year, or this time every 4 years, I should say. Biathlon. Let's talk about the biathlon here. Who in the world came up with the idea of combining the skills of cross-country skiing and shooting a rifle at a target? I mean, it's pretty weird, you have to admit that. Lots of people in the world can ski, and ski quite well. A lot of them can shoot, but it's kind of a stretch to consider doing both those things, the average athlete to do both those things and be good at both of them.
And I'm glad you cleared up what the biathlon was, because I didn't know. But skiing and shooting together.
Yeah.
I think, when it comes to investments, you have different investments that do different things.
Yeah.
Some are created for income, some are created for growth. You can have some that do a little bit of each, but it really helps to understand the purpose of what the money's being invested for. And purposes can change. You might have some money that's going to be used for growth initially, and then at some point that money is going to be used for income. So the investments need to be shifted for that point. So I think it's important that you work with someone who can understand your needs, work with all different types of investments, not just, sell you products or sell you an annuity, that sort of thing, but can really work with you in every capacity as far as looking at the whole picture and really coming up with a solid plan that's going to work out in your best interest and that sort of thing. So I think, as it relates is making sure that your investments, again, are doing doing what they're supposed to be doing rather than just doing one thing, but maybe doing multiple things as far as growth and income, et cetera.
Some of these things in the Winter Olympics really make me wonder. I mean, who in the world came up with the idea of going down a hill, a slick hill, needless to say, icy hill, and going around on a track and everything else when you can't really see where you're going? I mean, you're lying down in the luge competition. I mean, those are kind of scary times when you got people doing that. And how about curling? I've always thought that was kind of a dumb sport. I just wonder how people come up with these kinds of things.
Yeah, I've never understood that one either, with the brooms and they're sweeping or whatever they're doing.
I mean, what kind of athletic talent does it take to do that, as far as I'm concerned?
Exactly.
One that I do enjoy watching, and it's pretty easy to kind of correlate this with financial planning, I think, and with the tools that you have. With a bobsled, all four people had to be moving in perfect harmony, or things can really go awry. They can really go terribly wrong if one person doesn't do his or her job. And how do you equate that with financial retirement planning, Mark?
I think all the pieces of your retirement puzzle need to work in perfect harmony. So, whether it be your income piece, your growth piece, if you have Social Security, a pension, what's the tax situation look like, estate planning, legacy planning, the healthcare component, having them all work together so that these things work in your favor, if you will. And so that's why it's important that you work with someone who can work with all these things rather than work with someone who's going to sell you this and another person that's going to sell you that. I've seen too many times where people come in and they bought all these different investments from, 8 to 10 different people. And sometimes it works out. A lot of times it doesn't because they were just sold things without somebody looking at the whole picture. And that's why it's important you work with someone who does.
Well, that concept of everybody working together and doing his job, that applies to just about any sport you can think of, any kind of a team sport. For example, we recently saw the Super Bowl, which was an incredibly exciting game, and there were a couple of trick plays in that game for the Eagles, who won the NFL championship. And if everybody doesn't do his job on a particular play, it has the potential to break down and you get nothing. And so you've got to make sure that all your financial tools are working together properly as well.
Exactly. And that was a great game. I agree. That was one of the better games that I've seen.
It was so much fun to watch that game, even if you didn't care who won. And I really didn't. I
wasn't a fan of either team. So,
yeah. But it was fun. There's no question about that.
Exactly.
If you would like to come in and sit down and have a conversation with Mark Silverman about your situation, Mark's going to tell you what happens when you reach out with a phone call to the number that I'm going to give you in just a moment. Mark, what do you have for those folks?
Sure. Whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your opportunity to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process, and we call it the financial physical. I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. As part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets, and we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601 is your number to call or text. 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman standing by, and the folks at his office will get back with you, and you can come in and have a conversation about your situation. 520-333-7601. Maybe you're already working with an advisor, and that's fine. Wouldn't you like to get a second opinion at no obligation and no cost? Well, then go ahead and call that number, 520-333-7601. Call, or if you're more comfortable shooting a text in that direction, do that. And if you don't have a plan, that's the important thing, having that 4-letter word, PLAN. Have a plan for your retirement and make sure you don't run out of money. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text to get in touch. Of course, Mark Silverman's planning process is called the Financial Physical. And as we go on with today's show, we'll explain more what that's all about. And Mark will put your portfolio through a financial physical to make sure it's up to the test to survive and thrive in retirement. And that's what it's all about. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz, and Mark and I will be back in just a moment.
When you reflect on your life, what would you like to see as your fondest memories? Summers at your favorite vacation spot? Ice cream with the grandkids after their first t-ball game? Maybe it was your great adventure across the world or volunteering with a local nonprofit. Of course, those memories are still in the future, although they're not as far away as you might think. Be sure you have a financial plan to make them happen. Don't find yourself worrying while enjoying that ice cream. Peace of mind is attainable in your retirement. With the proper planning, you can secure a meaningful retirement. At Silverman & Associates, we can help you make those dreams a reality. Schedule your visit with our team today. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. We want to make memories with you. Get started by calling or texting 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Extra, read all about it.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman, your certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson. Thanks for being with us on the show today. The number to call is 520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. Your choice, call or send a text in that direction. We'll give you that number again coming up in just a few minutes. It's time now for In the News here on Saving with Silverman. And Mark, the labor market is extremely tight. It seems that most people who want to work are working. Do you see that as a good sign for our economy moving forward?
Well, I would think it's a good sign. I mean, I'm looking back, I was an econ major at the U of A, but, if unemployment's low, that's a good sign for the economy in general, typically speaking. So I would think that has to be a good sign. If you have a lot of people that are out of work, that can't find work, that want to work, well, that would, to me, seem like a bad sign. So I would have to think that, Ron, if unemployment's low, which is what you kind of mentioned, then I would say that that would be a good sign for the economy going forward.
You want to talk about the economy and how it affects your retirement savings and how it might affect your peace of mind, then why not give Mark Silverman a call, 520-333-7601. Come in and have a conversation about your situation. No obligation and no cost, 520-333-7601. Call or text if you prefer to do that. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. There's more coming up on today's show in just a moment.
Did you know that Mark Silverman and his team offer a complimentary Get Acquainted meeting where you can learn more about what he can do for you? The goal is to determine whether you might be a good fit for each other. That's because the folks at Silverman & Associates are all about building long-standing relationships. They aren't offering you a slick sales pitch or a get-rich-quick approach to retirement. Instead, Mark offers a simpler approach to investing. It's based upon your goals, and his strategies are tailored to your needs. To find out more about his unique planning process, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Have you ever heard that story about the grasshopper and the ant? You know, the one where the grasshopper fails to plan in the spring and almost starves to death in the winter? Learn from that. Don't wait until it's too late to get your finances in order. Start your path to a rewarding retirement today. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman, starring Mark Silverman at Silverman & Associates. If you'd ever like to check out Mark, you can go to his website at savingwithsilverman.com. Savingwithsilverman.com is a website. The all-important phone number to get in touch, to call or text, if you like, 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call or text, and you can arrange a time to come in and have a conversation face-to-face. And when you do that, you're not putting yourself under any obligation at all. And guess what? Mark is not going to put you off on anybody else either. You're going to be able to sit down and talk with Mark Silverman about your situation. And it's so important to realize that everybody's situation is different. There's no cookie-cutter solution when it comes to financial planning and retirement planning. So go ahead and give Mark Silverman a call, and you can arrange a time to come in and talk about your situation. This one's on the house. That is the title of our next segment of conversation here. Mark, we always get a lot of questions about how the house or houses fit into retirement plans, so I thought we could address some of the more popular questions that you get and some of the more popular topics that you find yourself addressing with folks. Pay off the house as soon as possible, or enjoy the low interest rate and pay it off slowly. Where do you stand on that debate?
You know, that's an interesting one, Ron. It just depends. I always break it down to peace of mind. We can show you on paper which makes more sense. You know, we have a number of our retired clients that have their house free and clear. You still have property taxes, insurance, and upkeep, et cetera. And then we have some clients that do have a mortgage in retirement. And so it's just making sure that we can create enough cash flow to cover that mortgage, as well as all the other things we just mentioned too. So it really comes down to, you know, what's peace of mind. Some people don't want to have a mortgage in retirement. Some people don't mind it, or they can use the write-off. You know, it's not usually typically a huge write-off anyways, because interest rates are low, which is a good thing, but it means you get a lower write-off as well. So it just depends on the situation. We could look at it as far as our planning process will include, you know, debt and see how that relates and see which is the best way to do it, if it makes sense to keep it or not keep it. But it really comes down a lot of times to peace of mind. And I can argue, you know, both ways if I need to.
You're probably going to give me another one of those it depends answers on this one as well. Is it wise to downsize to a smaller home when you retire?
Again, that depends. I mean, some people like to keep the house. They want to die in the house that they're living in, and I certainly understand that. I enjoy the house that I live in, and I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. But, you know, maybe it comes a time where it's too much maintenance and, you know, you don't need all that space anymore. And maybe, you know, the kids are out of the house and there's just a lot of upkeep in the yard and everything else. So maybe it makes sense to get something a little bit smaller. Maybe you want to get a smaller house and maybe get another house somewhere else, or you want to travel more so you don't need as big of a house. You know, it just depends. Everybody's got a different vision for retirement. Some people, like I said, want to keep the house that they've lived in. Some people are looking to downsize. It's a matter of what's important to you and what your goals and objectives are.
Another question here, is rental property a good idea for creating income in retirement?
It can be. I've seen it work well with some of our clients, and in other cases, I haven't seen it work as well. I think what it comes down to is making sure that you have a very small or no mortgage on that property so it can cash flow appropriately. I think the other thing, too, is are you going to be the one that's maintaining that house? Or are you going to be using a service, you know, a rental company that's going to take care of that for you? Because that does dip into your cash flow. So it just depends. I think where we've seen it make more sense is when people are actually the ones that are doing the work and the upkeep and that sort of thing. When they outsource that, we don't see it work as well. And it gets to a point where, too, you know, maybe you get to a certain age where you can't do that anymore. You're not running over there and fixing the toilet or, you know, that sort of thing. So it can work, but you just got to be careful, and it depends on the circumstances as far as who's going to be doing the maintenance on it.
You know, it's really interesting. I know that some people are more cut out for that than others. For example, I wouldn't want to have all that about responsibility of, making small repairs and all that sort of thing. And some people just don't want to worry with those kinds of hassles, and they'd rather invest in some other way than rental properties. And
exactly.
I know you've seen that a lot.
And I'm the first one to admit I'm not handy.
Yeah.
And so I had a rental property which I'd sold a couple years ago, and we were using a rental property company, and that's a whole nother story. But it wasn't a positive experience for me, but I have clients that it's worked well for. And then I have other clients that had similar experiences like me where it didn't work out so well.
Yeah, I'm the same way as you. I'm not handy at all. And so, I don't even have any interest in doing that stuff.
Do what you do best and hire the rest.
That's a good slogan. I like that. What complications, if any, have you seen with handling real estate when it comes to estate and legacy plans?
Well, where we see issues with it is, of course, when they're settling the estate, if there's multiple children or beneficiaries, does one want to keep the house, the other one doesn't? If they sell it and they have to, cash out the other ones, or the other ones have to refinance to, get a mortgage on it to pay off the other beneficiaries, it can be complicated. I've seen it handled where it's gone smoothly, and I've seen other times where it hasn't gone smoothly at all. So you just have to make sure that your estate plan is solid and that you're naming all of your assets, including your real estate, which is what we're talking about now, the proper way. And so it doesn't mean you need a trust. Sometimes there can be other ways of dealing with those sorts of things, but you need to have some type of estate plan so things get handled the appropriate way. And so the day that you and your spouse are no longer with us, your assets get distributed as efficiently as possible and avoid as much as possible probate, which is what I think most people's goal is, so that their beneficiaries, their loved ones, get the assets as quickly as possible so they can settle the estate, et cetera. So there can be complications when it comes to real estate. We've seen complications on another topic where people put real estate, actual real property, into retirement accounts. And so that can be an issue too if it's not spitting up enough cash flow when it's time to take the required minimum distributions. We've seen issues with that too. So you just got to be careful and know what you're doing. You don't want to learn the hard way and have an issue down the road.
That is the voice of Mark Silverman. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. And Mark, I know that there are lots of folks out there today listening to the show who have questions about the house they're living in, the rental property that they might buy and decide to handle, or hire somebody else to handle it for them. And if they have questions, they'd like to come in and have a conversation with you in your office in Tucson. What do you have to offer those folks?
Well, just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're a do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through this process that we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who is actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP, such as myself, can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Call or text 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Listen, if you need some repairs at your house, you want to put an addition on your house, Mark Silverman's not the guy to call. Don't call me either. But if you want financial planning, if you want to make sure that you don't run out of money during your retirement years, and that you can sleep at night with total peace of mind, knowing that you're taken care of and you're not going to outlive your money, then give Mark Silverman a call right away. Go ahead and do it now before those slots fill up fast on Mark's calendar. 520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. We really appreciate your listening today to Saving with Silverman. Mark, of course, the founder and managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson. We'll have more coming up on today's show in just a moment.
Mark Silverman is a lifelong Arizonan, and his firm is based right here in Tucson. When you come in for a visit, you can expect someone who's familiar with your community. At Silverman & Associates, our relationship with you is most important to us. We want to build you a financial plan that's unique to your goals. No generic products, no corporate red tape, just friendly folks looking to give you a comprehensive approach to retirement planning. Come in for a visit today and let us help you build a meaningful retirement. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
It's time to get to know Mark Silverman just a little bit better here on Saving with Silverman.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman of Silverman & Associates. He is, of course, a certified financial planner professional. Everybody knows that, but we want to give you an opportunity to get to know Mark just a little bit better here, and we do this every week on the show, and this is called Getting to Know You. And Mark, if all jobs had the same pay and the same hours, what job would you want to have?
Well, that's an easy one. I'd be doing exactly what I'm doing. I love what I do. I find I'm very fortunate, and my job is very gratifying, and I'm very passionate about what I do and helping people. And I've got, honestly, a great, tremendous group of clients that I truly enjoy working with and getting to know on both a personal and professional level. And so I wouldn't change a thing as far as what I do. I love what I do so much that I can't imagine myself doing anything else.
There aren't too many people in the world who can actually say that. I know so many people who absolutely hate their jobs, or they just kind of do it for the money, and they don't consider it fun. They don't really get any enjoyment or satisfaction out of it. But it sounds like you're just the opposite of that.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I've had other jobs, of course, but what I do now, I truly enjoy. And, what do they say? If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, there are things that I don't enjoy, as far as, there's paperwork and things like that aren't my favorite. But as far as meeting with clients and helping clients and getting satisfaction of seeing them achieve their goals and being part of that process and helping them, it's great.
Well, just between the two of us and everybody else out there in Radio Land, I'm the same way. I really like what I do too. And so we're two lucky guys, I think. Hey, thanks a lot for answering that question, and we'll have more coming up on today's edition of Saving with Silverman, but we'll take a quick break. You're listening to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman, certified financial planner professional, on the radio every week with all kinds of good generic advice for you. Can't really give you specific advice when it comes to your individual situation. Go ahead and call and set up a time to come in and have a conversation about your situation. 520-333-7601. You can call that number, or you can text 520-333-7601. Always fun to be on the radio with you, Mark, and it's been a great week. And a lot of folks out there, when they think about retirement, they have some pretty outdated ideas working in their minds. And just like your iPhone or your computer can become obsolete and need to be replaced or certainly updated, the way that some people think about retirement is absolutely obsolete and needs to be replaced. So let's talk about some outdated rules that people still cling to very tenaciously. Some people still believe that the 4% rule is something that you should abide by. Why is that outdated?
Well, the old 4% rule, and for those of you that don't know what the 4% rule is, because I do hear people do bring it up from time to time, there was a group that came out in the 80s that said if you took out 4% of your money, so let's say you had $100,000, you could take out $4,000, 4% of that each year and never worry about running out of money. Mm-hmm. The problem was in the 80s when that rule came out, the person that came out with that article, interest rates were much, much higher than they are now. The other problem is people weren't living as long back then either. So now we have interest rates that are near record lows. And then on top of that, we have people living longer. So the money's going to last a lot longer. So that number, that the person that came up with that study in the 80s is actually came out a few years ago, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, came out and redid that number. And that number is actually closer to 2.8%, which is, doesn't seem like a huge difference, but it's significant. It's more than 25% less than that number. So it just depends. I mean, we don't pick a number as far as using a 4% or 2.8%. We actually use financial planning software where we'll look at the goals, life expectancies, and run the numbers that way. So we know, with a high level of predictability, what your number is actually going to be rather than just apply a general rule to everybody.
Well, the bottom line here is that the 4% rule may have been a rule of thumb at one point, but certainly does not apply now. How about the 10-5-3 rule? First of all, what is that? And second of all, why is it outdated?
Well, the 10-5-3 rule basically says that, you should be able to get a 10% return on stocks, a 5% return on bonds, and 3% return on cash. So let's talk about that. Stocks, until very recently, stocks have done more than 10% in the last few years, certainly. 5% on bonds, we're not seeing those interest rates. As I mentioned, interest rates are much lower on bonds, fixed income. And who's getting 3% on cash? Bonds are getting about 3%, depending on the type of bond. So those numbers can't be used. And in fact, when we do planning, we use very, very conservative numbers. We're not going to use, record numbers. So I think it's important that you use accurate numbers and they should reflect what's currently going on. And certainly 3% on cash would be very misleading for a lot of people because there'd be a lot of people that put a lot of money in cash that they can be guaranteed 3%.
And if you were going by that 10-5-3 rule and it was 2008, I mean, you're going into the negatives there. I mean, that's really bad news. So, the 10-5-3 rule also obsolete. How about the people who say, Mark, I know that I should move from stocks to bonds as I get older. Why is that not necessarily the case?
Well, people tend to become more conservative as time goes on. When you're working, you're more aggressive. And then as you get close to retirement, you can become a little bit more conservative. And then typically when you get into retirement, you become even more conservative. And as you get older, that trend continues. Not every time, but that happens quite often. The question is how much, you're not going to move from 100% stocks to 100% bonds. That would be foolish. But how much you should move is going to, of course, depend on what's your risk tolerance, what are your goals and objectives, how much time do you have left in life, how much time do you have left in retirement, et cetera, or if you're close to retirement. All these different factors need to be played in so we can build a diversified portfolio with the right allocation. And again, everybody's situation is different. So we want to look at all these different factors before you make a move or a reallocation to your portfolio.
Mark Silverman is definitely the common sense guy, and if you'd like to come in and get some of this common sense wisdom face-to-face, 520-333-7601 is your number to call, or you can send a text to that number if you like, 520-333-7601. That'll put you in touch with Silverman and Associates in Tucson. Wherever you live in southern Arizona, you can come in and have a very comfortable, no-obligation conversation. I promise Mark's a nice guy. There's not going to be any high pressure that you're dealing with here. And he's not going to try to push any financial tools off on you at all. It's just an assessment, really. Kind of figure out where you are and where you need to go and how you can get there. 520-333-7601 is your number to call, again, to make that happen. We're talking about retirement planning ideas, some that are woefully obsolete. We've talked about the 4% rule, the 10-5-3 rule, and moving from stocks to bonds as you get older. How about the people who say, I don't know why there's such a magic number, but there are some people who say, get to the point of having $1 million in my retirement account, and I'm ready to retire right now. First of all, how did people get that idea? Where did it come from? And why is it not applicable to today's world?
I just think people are fascinated with the number 1 million.
Maybe so.
But everybody's number is different. I mean, it depends on what age you're going to retire, what's your life expectancy, how much you need in retirement. Some people want more in retirement, some people need less. It just depends on those sorts of factors. And again, where's the other income coming from? Are you taking in consideration Social Security? Are you fortunate enough to have a pension? Do you have rental income? I mean, all these different things come into play. So that's why you really need a plan that's going to put all these numbers together so you can get an exact number of how much you need to start putting away or how much you need saved before you can have the retirement that you've always envisioned. And so that number is going to vary. I mean, I've never had a plan come out where they needed exactly $1 million. I've had people that needed close to $1 million or more than $1 million. I've had others that need 3 or 4 million. It just depends, again, on all these different factors. So focusing on one number doesn't really apply to most people, or actually probably to anybody. You need to know what your number is, and that's going to be based on a lot of different factors that are particular to your situation.
And as Mark will tell you, it's not about accumulating a certain amount of money. It's about setting up income streams, which is certainly true for what Mark Silverman can do for you. So that is something you need to talk about with Mark when you come in. And I'll give you the number again in just a moment to make that happen. There are some people who just assume that once they retire, they're going to need less income in retirement than they needed while they were working. And that's not necessarily true either, is it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, they say that in some people's cases, you need 70 to 80% of your working income in retirement. So if you're making $100,000 a year, you need $70,000 to $80,000 a year in retirement. And that works for some people. But what we find is in most cases, a lot of our clients need just as much income in retirement as they needed when they were working. Because the one thing that work does is it occupies your time. So if you're retired, now you have a lot more time. And unfortunately, a lot of things that you're going to do in retirement are going to cost money, whether that's traveling or playing golf, et cetera. Those things cost money. And so we need to figure out what you're planning on doing in retirement, what that might cost, so we can kind of figure out a budget. But for most people, they want the same type of lifestyle that they had working as they do in retirement. We have a few rare cases of some of our clients, even in fact, where they're actually spend more in retirement than they were when they were working. And so again, everybody's situation is different. It really comes down to what you're going to do in retirement, et cetera. So we can put a cost on that and figure out how much you're going to need cash flow wise on a monthly or yearly basis.
When you get right down to it, I don't think you can ever say that, a blanket statement that you're going to need less money in retirement than you needed when you were working, because, let's say that, you have things that you do that are fun now, maybe on Saturday or maybe Sunday. Well, when you're retired, every day is a Saturday or a Sunday. And so, if you play golf or you travel or whatever you're doing, it's going to cost you a lot more money than it is to buy lunch, for example, when you're taking a lunch break. I mean, it's just a ridiculous way to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. I mean, so, these are all things that we've seen our clients go through, so we can guide people, having the experience of seeing, things, people do things right and people do things wrong. They say learn from your mistakes. I find it better to learn from other people's mistakes. It's far cheaper to do it that way.
Absolutely right. For folks who may be thinking about finally getting off the couch or out of the seat and making a phone call to your office today and setting up a time to come in and have a conversation, what do you have to offer those first-time callers?
Well, whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me. Like Ron said, I don't pawn you off on somebody else. You'll actually meet with me here in my office to go through this process, and we call it the financial physical. I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. This is not like the other radio shows where they're trying to sell you an annuity or some type of product. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And I can tell you, if you're working with someone at a bank, a brokerage, or wirehouse, an insurance salesperson, annuity salesperson, they do not have a fiduciary responsibility over all your money. So there is a big difference in what we do. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone, however, our slots fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. You can call that number or you can send a text to it, whatever you're more comfortable with, 520-333-7601. Simply leave your contact information. Mark's team will get back with you. And when you come in for a conversation, as Mark said, you're going to be sitting down and talking with him. It'll be a friendly conversation. No obligation, no pressure involved. It's not like that at all. 520-333-7601 will put you in touch with your certified financial planner professional, Mark Silverman at Silverman and Associates in Tucson. Wherever you live in southern Arizona, come on in and have a talk about your situation. Get an assessment of where you are. 520-333-7601. Call or text. This Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman, and there's more coming up on Saving with Silverman in a moment.
At Silverman and Associates, we understand that life can be expensive. There are bills to pay, and you might have loved ones you want to look after. With all those extra expenses, it's easy to neglect your own financial health. We want to make sure you'll be well cared for when the time comes. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman, your certified financial planner professional. 520-333-7601 is his number. That is 520-333-7601. Call or text at any time during the show. You don't have to wait until the end of the show. You can go ahead and do that right now. And as a matter of fact, that's a good idea. You can beat the rush. A lot of folks will be calling in at the end of the program today, and you can get ahead in line. Of course, Mark's schedule fills up fast, so go ahead and get in touch. Time now for the request line. We have some great questions, as always, that have come in from some of our listeners. Michael in Tucson says, Mark, I've heard that I should be saving 10% of my income toward retirement. Does that sound accurate? I'm in my 50s, so I need to make sure that I'm doing this thing right.
Well, 10% is better than 5%, certainly. But it really depends on, did you get an early start? Have you been saving, since you got your first job, since your 20s? If you do, then you're probably ahead of a lot more people. I'm sure you are. But if you just got started, a lot of people don't get started, unfortunately, until their late 40s, early 50s. You have a lot of catching up to do. So 10% might not be the right number. As we mentioned earlier, we were talking about how much you need saved. It really depends on, what age you're planning on retiring, how much you're going to need in retirement, what's your life expectancy, are you single, are you married? All these things need to be weighed in, and then we can tell you how much you need to be saving. So, 10% is good, but whether you're going to have enough from that is going to depend on all those factors that I just mentioned. But in some cases, you need to be saving a little bit more than that. So, but to get you the accurate number, we're happy to sit down with you and we can kind of to look at those sorts of things and figure out what your number actually is.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for sending in the question, and you can get more specific answers to your situation by coming in and having a conversation with Mark Silverman. We have another question today. It comes from Oro Valley, and it's from Lucille. Lucille says, I make too much money to contribute to an IRA or a Roth. What's the best way for me to save for retirement?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're working for a company and you have a company-sponsored plan, like a 401k, a 403b, 457, TSP, their savings plan, any of those vehicles, those work great because you get those right off. They're taken out right before your taxes, so you're not paying taxes on that money going in, and you can typically put a lot more than you can in a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. And so those are your best way. If those aren't available, there's some other things that we could look at. Actually, there's some type of universal life policies that are out there that can be used for retirement income that work quite well. We do a lot of those for people that are self-employed. So depending on, your situation, which if you're self-employed, you typically don't have a company plan, a 401k, et cetera. But there's some things we could do with life insurance that are not used like you would think with life insurance, but used for retirement income. So that might be another option. But just, happy to reach out to us and see if we can come up with some different ideas. But again, it's going to depend on your situation and if we know some more information.
Great questions so far from Michael and Lucille. And got time for one more question, Mark?
Sure.
All right. Oscar is in Vail, and Oscar says his financial advisor is older than he is. Should he move to someone else who's not going to retire before he does?
Well, that's always a concern. It's kind of a catch-22. You want to work with an advisor that's not, just starting off, that knows what they're doing. You want them to have the experience, but then again, you don't want them to be too old where, you're going to be looking for another advisor sometime soon. So, maybe it makes sense to look around and see. I wouldn't just jump ship, but you maybe interview some other advisors that you feel maybe can do a good job for you, that have the experience. We're certainly happy to throw our name in the hat, if you will. But, it's important that you have somebody that's going to serve you well, that has the experience and the credentials to meet your needs. And, it is nice to work with someone that is going to be around, so you're not doing this process every couple of years. But the nice thing is, especially with us, if we're not doing a good job for you, you're free to leave. You're not locked in like with some other advisors. They lock you in with certain products where you can't really leave. With this, you're free to leave at any time. So go out and maybe be proactive. We're certainly happy to meet with you. Reach out to us if you're interested, or, interview some other advisors and see, who else is out there that might serve you well. You might find that maybe can find somebody that can do a better job for you than what you're currently receiving. That's the ultimate goal.
Mark, I know that some folks are going to want to reach out with a phone call and arrange a time to come in and have a conversation with you during this next couple of weeks here. What do you have to offer those folks who are going to place that phone call and get in touch?
Sure, Ron. Well, we've had some great questions, and if anybody's interested in having us answer their questions, if you go to our website, which is savingwithsilverman.com, and you go to the radio tab, there's a place to submit your question, and maybe you'll hear on the air. So thank you for submitting those questions, but now is my chance to ask you a question. So here's a simple question, and can you answer it honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I get it. I'm as much friends with so many of my clients, they become true friends over the many years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? And I'm going to repeat. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in a position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and income and risk and diversification and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews, but hopefully it's more frequently than that? Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If all of that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having these in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be surprised at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call or send us a text to 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Or check us out online at savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Put your portfolio through a financial physical to make sure it's up to the test to survive and thrive in retirement. 520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. That is so important, such an important number. You may wonder why we give it so many times, because Mark can be on the radio here every week giving you lots of good generic advice, but can't really give you any kind of specific advice, certainly without knowing more about you. Everybody's situation is different. Everybody is unique. 520-333-7601 is your number to call to arrange a time to come in and have a conversation one-on-one with Mark Silverman. 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman, of course, your certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates in Tucson. Mark's been fun being on the radio with you today. Another good show, and I know you're going to hear from a lot of our listeners.
Ron, always happy to be here. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen, and if we can be of any help, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks again for taking the time to listen.
Join us again next week for the next edition of Saving with Silverman.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.